We're talking hibiscus. Let's start with your earliest memory.
Oh, my childhood memories. Look, I really, really loved hibiscus as a child because in the late 70s we had settled back in Fiji. So we lived in Vakumba Road, which is just above Albert Park where the hibiscus was held. And oh my gosh, the sounds, the smells. The smells were a combination of lovo, bhutta, popcorn, and mud. The mud, it would be upturned Albert Park, and that's, I guess, why they don't have the festival there anymore, maybe. And also the sounds of the screaming from the Ferris wheel and the other rides, but it was also just joy and shrieks and Kayla and all that stuff. So it was really, really lovely. I remember 1979 specifically. That was because of who won the Miss Hibiscus title that year. It was Margaret Singh, and she was the first Indo-Fijian to win that title. Back in those days, like 1978, I was a child. I didn't know, how old was I? 7. I did not know what the cultural significance of Margaret winning that title was, but I absolutely know now, and I certainly knew 10 years after when I experienced hibiscus in an adult capacity. Yeah, childhood memories of hibiscus, the float parade, the queens, the contestants. They were just absolutely stunning. Interestingly enough, hibiscus to us becomes about the pageant rather than what it was supposed to be about. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But right now, my childhood memories are about the floats. The posts and telecom floats and the tip top floats. And back then, the ice creams, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. The contestant would have to sit on an arm. I swear this is, oh wow, it was amazing. The floats were really super creative, super colorful, and just absolutely beautiful. Suva, too, the shop fronts were competing. The crepe paper flowers, oranges and reds, pinks, I think, and yellows all over the shops, and just all the same hibiscus and cotton wool. I don't know. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely beautiful. Fun time. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't raining. It was just a fun time in Suva. So those are my childhood memories. And then after that would be my teen memories. And in my teen years, well, it wasn't so much about the stalls and the rides anymore. It was much more about the nightlife in Suva. And look, yes, we got up to some things like it was the start of festival season. So from August onwards, and after August, it was Diwali. And then, of course, all the other festivities. So it was just a fun time. So that's my childhood memories of hibiscus. And sound check. Yay, we have sound. Yay, we have sound. Oh, right, that's right. What am I? Oh, gosh, 1989. By this time, I had been with Fiji Broadcasting Commission on Radio Fiji 3, the English language station, for a few months now because I had been away at boarding school. And then as soon as I could, I went back to Fiji, and I pretty much just walked into FBC and said, "Hey, I really love radio. I, remember being on radio at 12 and I really enjoyed the whole responsibility. I love media. I love music. I know a lot. Try me." And they said, "Sure, okay." So by this time, I was being recognized as being good at what I was doing. So I was part of the prestigious Outside Broadcast team for that year's crowning. Now, this photo, oh my gosh, it is such an exciting time for me. This was the crowning night, which is on the Saturday of the week-long Hibiscus Festival. But in 1989, it was called the Hibiscus Carnival. Now, this photo is a team of legends. Standing next to me is RF3's Martha Dora, my apologies. And she's wearing a gorgeous red crepe de chine dress of the times. And it's just, it's nice and balmy evening. We're not cold, and we have to represent FBC and media because these were the days before visual media. There was no television. We were the ones setting the scene. So these announcers, these presenters, these legends of media were seasoned, were veterans of announcing and describing to the listener at home who wasn't there. They had to set the scene, tell the story, and I was invited to be a part of this prestigious team. Like, what? Okay. So I may look all like, I'm just so cool and confident, but I am, yeah, But I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this. I'm so excited because I was on a high from the night before, and I'll talk about that later. But standing next to Martha is a legend, another legend, Sami Mudaliar, who was a golden voice of RF2. Next to Sami is YG Yamnia Singonovo, the golden tonsils of RF3, RF2, and RF1. And next to him is Salote Karoy of RF1. And all of us look incredibly coordinated. I love, love, love Salote's kaftan as well. I totally wear what Martha and Salote are wearing. As for what I'm wearing, see that orange silk? Yes, I got this orange silk from Martin Fabrics in 1984. Oh my gosh, if you're watching this from that time, you do remember Martin Fabrics. What a wonderful magical shop of material and creativity that was. Anyway, this orange silk I have used in shoots for Miss World Fiji 2012 and one of Fiji's most incredible dancers, etc. I love this orange silk. I used to drape all of this material around me and along with my mother's saris. I still do this. I don't really wear it the traditional way unless I was, in a professional capacity, like reading the news, and in religious festivities, etc. And at weddings. But otherwise, if I'm wearing it just for fun and just for myself, I like to tie knots and drape things and wind it around, and that's what I'm doing. And I remember I had to describe what the contestants were wearing and had swallowed the thesaurus the night before, And by this time, because I'm on this outside broadcast team, I know quite a bit about the history of Hibiscus and when it was founded, etc. And now is when I know the cultural significance of Margaret Singh winning Miss Hibiscus 1979, because 1989 is 2 years post-coup. So we do know that Fiji is not quite the trouble-free paradise it is seen to be. Look, it is paradise, but there is a little bit of a paradox there too. But as I said, I do know the history of it and why it was created. It was created by the JCs to replicate the very successful Aloha Festival in Hawaii, which was used as a huge tourism draw card. And the JCs, they wanted to do that too in Suva to make the low season another reason to be a high season. And because the pageant had done so well in the Aloha Festival, they decided for the Hibiscus Festival to have a Miss Fiji pageant. That's what it was known as before. So the first Miss Hibiscus, the wonderful, the beautiful Liebling Marlow, was actually known as Miss Fiji. Now has always been this issue about who gets to win this title and what is this title. And we'll talk a little bit more about this maybe another time or elsewhere. But the second winner in the next year was a young woman of indigenous ancestry, I believe. And it wasn't then until about 1979 until Margaret Singh. But in between, there were indigenous winners, like I remember, of course, not because I was alive, but because of history. The winner, I think it was Eta Uluvula. My apologies, because I know Eta mostly as Mrs. Eta Qereqeretabua. And 20 years later, 20 years later, her daughter, Lenora, won Miss Hibiscus 1988. So I really love how history is connected. And Lenora, of course, went on to become a media legend in Fiji and also a politician. So she's now currently in politics. So this is all just very, very important, I feel, to present day, what you need to know about current affairs, which are always very closely tied, and of course the consequences of whatever happened back then. So this is 1989 radio. We have to know all of these things. We must also talk about light things and not these profound things or things that should not and no longer be swept under the carpet. We should talk about these things. So it was important for people to understand that I understood my significance in being a young woman of Indo-Fijian ancestry on English language station saying, "Good evening, I'm Sandhya Nand, part of the OB team, bringing you the crowning for Hibiscus Carnival 1989. It was really important. I knew the responsibility, or maybe in my own mind, I took the responsibility and understood how heavy this is in terms of representation. So all of this, I take seriously, even if I do remember it all in the most delightful of ways. So we had to describe the atmosphere. Or, describe what's going on. We'd already talked about the floats and the chariot, who was Miss Charity for that year. And now the excitement was building up, of course, because the second runner-up gets announced and everyone's like, "Ooh, great, wonderful, wonderful." Everyone knew that, she deserved to be placed somewhere. And then it was now the two left. And it was like, and Miss Hibiscus, 1989 is, it would usually be, I think at that stage it was the president. Were we a republic, officially a republic by that time? Anyway, it was the head of, the figurehead of Fiji would be announcing whoever was the title winner of that time. And it's, it was really exciting. And Miss Hibiscus, 1989 is, drum roll, please. It was the Fiji Military Forces Band, the jazz band, so good. And Natalie Grey. Oh my gosh, it was a huge roar. She was a very, very popular choice. So it was most deserved. I think she was a senior when I was at Suva Grammar School represent. Because of how we were, fresh off coup, I think it was really important for us to show ourselves what we are capable of doing, the creativity, the glamour, the history, all of that. And now, speaking of glamour, oh, look at this photo. It is so marvelous. Look, people associate me most closely with fashion, and absolutely, because fashion is a great, great love of mine, but radio is my first love. Fashion has always been a great love because fashion has been a part of my life since I was a child. As I had explained, my mother was very fashionable and stylish, and she loved my independence in that as well. So I was known as a stylish young woman in my teens, as I would use Suva as my catwalk, as we called runways back then. So I had been noticed. There had been some shoots. There was one shoot when I was 13 at 4 Fiji Times that got vetoed, and another shoot that was just used in a book later. I think I have those photos somewhere. I was no stranger to dressing well and accessorizing and being bold. I used to wear hats and heels down Suva, just walking into Suva for Saturday day. I wasn't afraid of fashion. I used fashion as communication. When I was 18 and I had got, I was already on radio, I was asked by legends of fashion in Fiji, Anna Sweetman and Tanya Whiteside. Tanya was the heir to the iconic design house Tiki Togs. And so she had taken over designing the collections, etc. And they wanted bold people. And the Hibiscus Fashion Parade was the most prestigious fashion show of the year and a very important part of the society calendar. And this photograph shows the finale of the Tiki Togs collection that year. We're wearing sarongs styled according to our personality. And if you see closer, look at me. I have been styled with a red lame ribbon tied toga style to my toga style sarong. And I'm wearing a turban. Anna loved styling me. Tanya loved styling me because they knew I had the confidence to wear such bold looks with flair, and not like I was wearing a costume, but simply like I was wearing an extension of personality. And that's what a model's job is, to make everyone believe that this garment is just going to be wonderful on the wearer. And we're supposed to then enhance and sell the designer's artistry. So this photo, where I'm standing with the top models of the time, and it's a very dancey period in fashion, the 80s and 90s, and we're dancing to Put a Little Love in Your Heart by Annie Lennox and Al Green, released in 1988, and so we're just dancing on the runway. And standing next to me is a catwalk sister of mine, and also on this runway is a former Miss Hibiscus, and that's Loretta. She was Miss Hibiscus in 1981, and I'm standing here with her, looking at her with such awe and respect, but also holding my own. And look at how fabulous she looks. She's just Loretta too is in radio and in media. This was my debut. So if you're going to ask me about nerves, I can't tell you. I can't remember. I do know that I was excited the day we were dressing up. It was held at Suva Travelodge. We were getting made up. Our hair and makeup is done professionally by Selena Samasoni and her, team from their salons, because Selena had the major salons all over Fiji. And so, and then we've got the champagne, the wine is free flowing. It's all very glamorous. And it's just so exciting. And we're all so excited, all the models. And I'm like, whoa, I cannot believe I am here because 10 years ago, I was watching Miss Hibiscus 1978, Tanya Whiteside, crowned Miss Hibiscus 1979. And now I'm actually a part of, this most prestigious fashion parade. I really felt like I had found my calling. And this photograph is the same one that I'm standing with Loretta. You can see my confidence, but you're nervous, butterflies are going, and gosh, I'm really blue stealing it here because, look, this photo best describes it. Let's first of all talk about this outfit. It is so what I would totally wear today. But the bow has to go, as do the shoes. Those are a big no, but the outfit is kick-ass. I love it. And of course, the 80s and 90s are trending right now. Joan look at her, she's so full of attitude. Let's go to my face, because I am staring icicle daggers at someone sitting in the audience who has been shouting out racist taunts and mocking me and calling me a name that had been making the headlines that year because it was the name of a young woman embroiled in a political scandal. And anytime a young woman in political scandal is associated in the news, it's because a minister couldn't keep his, pants zipped up and couldn't keep his lips zipped either. So this young woman happened to be Indian. And so, it echoed a ministerial scandal, a political scandal of the 60s in England, the Profumo scandal. But because this one in the 80s was Indian, gosh, I guess she didn't get the pop culture notoriety as Christine Keeler did. And of course, now, post-coup, people were shaken out of comfort zones. And because the Indian population of Fiji had been blamed for, inciting this coup because they demanded, rights or something like that. Who knows, right? Indo-Fijians were seen in a negative light, in a way that, well, they've always been seen, and they're still, maybe, I'm not sure. I've not personally experienced that, but I can't. It would be remiss of me to not mention it just because I personally have been celebrated and supported. I'm a child of Fiji, and I have that privilege of being treated as such. But as an Indo-Fijian child of Fiji, I have to also say that I know there's a lot that isn't quite right, nor quite equal. But let's go back to this fashion show. So I guess people weren't used to seeing a young woman of Indo-Fijian ancestry who was so confident and not intimidated. And also, I did make it very obvious that I am not trying to be anything other than I am. And I guess this young woman who was trying to get her, cool crew of young society members who I know, they're friends, a lot of them I grew up with and have shared history with since the 80s. They're trying to, and they're all like, yeah, but they're not really, not all of them are interested. And the ones who are, well, I guess I not understand, but I empathize and can see their motives. So they were, trying to cut me down, but I was the one up on a stage. They were in the audience. So I don't know, you've got to pick your battles. So I just use that to help me steady myself and stabilize myself. But that first photo really shows the icicles. And I think the other one then shows my maturity within seconds on that runway. I mean, but I really, really enjoyed, I knew that this was my calling, fashion, and being on a runway. I really loved the theatricality of it. I'm not an actor, but modeling requires you to adopt personas and have a fantasy in your mind so you can be that person or that person or that person, whatever, wearing whatever you're wearing. So I knew that was now another thing I wanted to really, really do my best at. So that's 1989. Wow, the 90s. The 90s were really interesting worldwide. Fiji too. I'm going to say progressive, and it is a word I use a lot when I talk about Fiji in the 90s, especially considering what had happened late 80s and considering what Fiji had transitioned from in the pre-coup and 70s to what was happening now. It was very, very creative, and if not completely progressive, then certainly not conservative and open, very open to other people's creativity and how they wish to express themselves. How else to explain how we were able to do so much of what we were able to do in the 90s, and how else to explain this photo? This is me, and I think I'm singing either Vogue or Copacabana, because by this time in the 90s in Fiji, music and fashion and media were closely entwined. And I suppose I should also mention that by this time in 1992, I was a newsreader for the Fiji One News, and I was singing professionally full time. So doing all of those things full time at the same time, modeling, singing, and reading the news on television. So suffice to say, I was very well known. And Anna Sweetman, by this time, was my agent, our agent, and she was still organizing all the amazing fashion events and had put on some really incredible events throughout the year prior to the Hibiscus Fashion Parade. And so, yes, she had started combining this. And so I was singing. I would be singing. And I was a draw card because come and watch, the newsreader that you see on television in a sari. Come and watch her sing and model along with all the top models of the time. Modeling was taken very seriously, but in a way of not seriously as a full-time career, not in that way, but in a way that we were seen as a representation of each racial group. Is that a way for me to say this? I don't know, but the best, or the best of the best. How about that? We were all the best of the best, This was just these wonderful times. So look at this photo. I'm singing. We're wearing expose swimwear, very daring looking. And the audience is all very, this is a high fashion, high society thing. The contestants are all sitting around. And the models are all walking to what I am singing. And then we are also wearing Tiki Tog's collection of that year. And it's just a lovely fashion parade with lots and lots of models that year, because Anna would, for the Hibiscus Fashion Parade, bring models who are not necessarily full-time models, but they had some pizzazz and presence. And Anna was all about presence. So we did have people who weren't normally modeling, who were modeling with us. Oh my gosh, and this dress is the bridesmaid dress because the finale was a bridal collection. And I'm wearing one of the bridesmaids' dresses. And I still have that belt, as you can see, that dress and that belt that I'm wearing for that outfit. I have that belt. I don't still have it. I actually found it in an op shop out back. Isn't that crazy? I told Tanya this. She was amazed. So yeah, 1992, very very daring year. And Anna had been used to putting on really, every year something that topped the previous years, because she had been a top model in the 70s and 80s, and she'd been organizing this for a long time. So it was just really great. And she really understood that I was a triple draw card, and she really treated the models that she was representing really well. So we all were just having a great time. Who was Miss Hibiscus that year? I believe it was Ilisapeci Kubuabola, I think, yes. By this time, I should remember it because I was telling the news, reading the news on television, but somebody else was writing the script. So on radio, we write sometimes our own scripts, etc. So that was 1992, a very daring year. 1997 was float here. See, this is what I mean when I said I got to live out all my childhood fun memories of the floats. I was actually on a float. Now, some backstory, some history. Sogo Fiji was the department store of the times, and I had started doing and organizing little, creative fashion shows for them in the window, live mannequins in their Cumming Street store at that time, because Sogo also was the shop to go to for all the Indian wear. So as you can see on this float, we are some of the top models of the time. And that's Zelda and Neil and Emma, and I think the blonde-haired model, she was a young one, Panina. And we are standing on this float that I designed and I co-created, conceptualized with Neil, and he was in charge of getting the float together. And he was so annoyed that day because Well, they didn't quite get the panels right, but oh well, okay. Look, you just have to, the show must go on. So we were on this float for Sogo Fiji's contestant. That was Lisa, and she was Miss Sogo Fiji 1997. It was a great year. I remember the contestants were all so fantastic in 1997 and the year after. And I think Priscilla, who was a model with us, she was an entrant that year. Standing on a float is not as easy as you think, but it is so much fun. It was so much fun. Look at this photo. I'm standing there as if, I'm just like I'm really planted firmly because the truck carrying the float is stopping and starting and jerking and lurching and it's very hard to look composed and glamorous and poised when the wind is blowing one way, your hair is going the other way, and the truck is going that way while you're going this way. But we managed and we look really cool. And then you come into Albert Park and you just have to model and look fantastic. And it was such a fantastic, fantastic time. I really enjoyed being on that float. That was my memory from 1997. So Miss Hibiscus 1997 was Letila Mitchell. I forgot to mention that this was 1997 was post Asia for me. I had just come back from living in Asia for a few years. And also I had joined the Red Cross committee for the Red Cross Design Awards. I was the producer because they copied the Weller Design Awards for Suva. So Weller was held in Nadi and Red Cross in Suva. And as soon as I got back, they asked me to please join the committee, and it was wonderful. So 1997 was after quite a few wonderful, things happening that had happened for me in the last few years. So yeah. By 1998, I had rejoined FBC, which was now known as Island Network Corporation Limited, and I was the promotions and publicity director and on-air host with my own show called Brunch to Lunch. It was on Bulla FM, the English language radio station. So I was asked to join the Hibiscus committee as the media part of it, and I got to interview some incredible young women, the contestants of that year. It was great. I remember one. It was a young woman. I can't remember her name, so my sincere apologies. A young Indo-Fijian woman. When I say young, I mean my age probably. She was an actuary, and I was fascinated because I did not know what that was. And that's some sort of, not a financial analyst, but someone who has to analyze what creates the financial fluctuations, et cetera, et cetera. And I was fascinated by that. And it actually kickstarted a fascination with finance for me in terms of looking at what goes on behind that, not the actual money. Much to my detriment sometimes, but it was fantastic. And these young women really, really enjoyed. I remember because one told me that she really enjoyed the conversation and actually being asked intelligent questions about their thoughts on other things and not just, what their favorite dish is or something. I'm not sure. That's just an old silly joke. And because the joke is, what's your favorite dish? And the contestant supposedly answers, Pyrex. It's like, oh my gosh. No, but that's terrible. Everyone likes to make fun of these incredible young women who enter these pageants because, well, pageants are pageants. But they were all, I remember that. It was just a wonderful, wonderful year for me because I got to really know these young women. I got to talk with them. And I remember Ranadi Johnston is the name of Miss Hibiscus 1998.
So I have a couple of questions.
Yes. Oh, I thought we were done. I was like, okay, what are you going to ask me now?
just to throw in there.
All right, okay.
Would you have ever entered Miss Hibiscus?
Well, I just said something about pageants. Okay. Oh, well, that's okay. That no one's really necessarily asked me that question for two reasons. No, I would never have entered, and secondly, I've never been asked, and that's fine because. Well, I guess people like their representatives, real corporate representatives, to be perhaps a little bit less of a wild card. I don't know. But I was content with that because I was in media, and modeling is not quite the same as entering a pageant. Well, certainly not in those days. And I suppose I should, be transparent about this. A lot of people are already aware that I am quite famously anti-pageant. I don't like pageants because pageants are fundamentally a physical competition. It is a beauty pageant, and regardless of how excellent the contestant is, I mean, she could be a scientist, ballerina, lawyer in her spare time and saves the whales and rescues refugees. And there are women like this. There are women like this who enter these pageants, but it still does come down to what she looks like and how she will represent physically and her walk and what she looks like in a bikini. And it wasn't that strict so much in Fiji. The Miss Hibiscus contestants certainly weren't weren't specifically chosen for physicality. There were other reasons because they were all excellent, always, and poised. And I guess someone you would want representing your country in a global way. So and I know that that's what I am as well. I am an unofficial ambassador, and I have coined the term glambassador, an unofficial glambassador of Fiji. And I think that's good enough, and that keeps me on my toes. I don't need to win a title, and I'm not putting down the title winners, but I cannot be, confined to just that. This now sounds a bit like them, me, pick me crap, and that's not what I intend this to be at all. I was content representing Hibiscus in media and talking about how wonderful and joyous and beautiful and significant and important and representative of Fiji hibiscus is. So I got the freedom to do that in media in a way that I would never have been able to if I became a hibiscus contestant, because then you're part of an institution that you've always got to uphold. Speaking of which, FBC. But going back to hibiscus, because I always get a little bit too deep. I was never asked, and that's fine, because I was wonderfully supported and celebrated as someone who got to talk about hibiscus from the outside, from the inside, from all aspects, from all angles, and that was really, really wonderful for me. And because of that platform, I then got to describe and showcase and talk to the contestants. And really, really, use my skills, my privileges, my opportunities, my platforms to showcase this as a wonderful, wonderful celebration of unity. So there you go.
Cool. Thank you. That was lovely. Yeah,